sure that they were actively participating today in the congregational meeting. So thank you to Faith Formation for that. Okay. So as I was discerning with pastors and a little bit with other church leadership, wanted to, instead of, and those of you that have been in meetings with me know that I really don't do prayers very often. I do sharing and reflections of different things that come to mind. And one of my favorite trips that I took while I was working at Bethel College was up in the Pacific Northwest and traveling with John Gehring. And we were traveling along this highway with a river in the Pacific Northwest. Both John and I enjoy fishing. John grew up in Washington State. I grew up here in Kansas, and most of my fishing came in ponds and lakes here in Kansas, and John did a lot of fishing up in the streams of the Pacific Northwest. And so I asked him, I was like, tell me about when I'm looking at these rivers, what we're seeing, and what does it mean when you're looking to go fish somewhere? And so he did a great job of explaining to me on this car ride what the different parts of the river were. And as I was thinking of where we are as a church today, this conversation came up. And so as you can see up here, there are some different parts of a river. And I want to explain kind of how this kind of connects with where we are today as a church. Many of us have probably been to different rivers, and we have rapids and riffles, which are the same thing, but they're a more turbulent part of the river where it's rocky and hard to navigate. And the difference between a riffle and a rapid is kind of the capacity or the volume of water that's going through them. And then after those riffles, we have runs. Okay, so we've got a little bit deeper water. It's smooth, a little smoother. That's where fish maybe congregate a little bit more if you're looking for fishing. It's not really going to happen in the riffles a whole lot, especially if the volume of water is high. Then we have pools, this deep, calm water. Okay? Again, this is a place where if you're a fisherman, you're looking for fish there because things have really slowed down, depending on the time of year, of course. You've got eddies where you're getting that current going backwards, kind of against the grain of the river. And you've got the shallow end of the pool where it's clearing out again. And these are repeated things that happen time after time after time as you kind of go down a river. And so as I was reflecting on this, you know, these different sections, especially if you're a fisherman or if you are taking a trip down the river, it takes some skillful navigation to be able to make that happen. And we have really had some skillful navigators for us over the last several years here at Bethel College Mennonite Church. Pastoral leaders, we've had staff leaders, and we've had leaders from the congregation get us through kind of these different sections of the river. I see us as just maybe exiting a time where we have had some rapids in the river. We had a period of COVID, a period of some significant transition in our pastoral team. And hopefully we're getting to these areas where it's a little bit smoother, which is going to be a lot of fun, I do hope. But as I kept thinking about it a little bit more, you know, as a congregation, as individuals, we get to choose what part of this river that we participate in at different times. Sometimes we might choose to really lean into the turbulent parts of what's happening in different areas of our church and our congregation. Sometimes we need to take a break because we've been really fighting against some stuff and had a lot on our shoulders, and we go to that pool of that deep, calm water. And we can choose that as individuals, and we can choose that as a congregation. And what helps make those choices is the capacity that each of us has individually and the capacity that each of us has collectively as a congregation to be able to take on these different sections of the river so that we can skillfully navigate them together. And one of the things that I don't think a lot of us think about is when that river is flowing fast, it's a lot of extra water that goes into it. And that's out of our control some of the time. some of the time, it's out of our control. Many rivers these days are controlled by dams upstream, and those are in the control of us to be able to say, what is our capacity right now, and how do we make sure that we keep the water in the banks and keep the river flowing in the direction that we need it to go. And I don't have answers for you, but collectively we come up with those answers together, and we each help each other navigate the different sections of what the BCMC River is. So that's my prayer for you for this morning to reflect upon later. So first, for our congregational meeting, we will do a kind of a hand/voice vote for our approval of our minutes from our last meeting, which was May 19th. You saw the emails that went through. You could click on to get the official minutes if you liked, but just kind of the short summary. We voted to extend an invitation to Joanna Heriter to be co-pastor. She said yes, she's right here. That's great. We did approve the slate of nominees for our board members and for our officers of committees. There was a report from Witness Commission. That report was actually enacted 2 weeks ago when we had our Peace Sunday with David Gushy. And then we had a report from Bethel College Relations Committee, and they're extending and going to their campus instead of expecting Bethel College students to come here. And then just some updates on where we were on some of our credence report work and other business that was brought up at that time. I would entertain a motion to approve these minutes. Dale Schrog says yes. I would take a second. Tim Hodge with a second. All in favor of approving our minutes from the congregational meeting in May 19th, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay. Okay, so next is our action item today. And for our action item, you will be receiving some blank ballots coming out shortly. But I wanted to give a bit of a history of kind of how we got to the point that we are with our membership guidelines today. So as you can see up there, both the deacons, I'm going to rewind a little bit, at our January meeting of 2024, we had brought to us by deacons in the Inclusive Task Force that we wanted to update our welcome statement. And we approved that as a congregation. And I'm not sure if I would call it a clerical error, but kind of a clerical error that we added that welcome statement that was not intended ever to be a part of our membership guidelines, but we put it into our membership guidelines in a constitution. That's how that vote ended up. And so a couple months later, the deacons and the Inclusive Task Group came to us at the board and said, hey, that was not our intent. We did not ever intend the welcome statement to be in the membership guidelines, did not intend for that to be in the Constitution or the bylaws. And so they asked us, what do we need to do? So the board then tasked the deacons to review and update our membership guidelines. And that work was done in April and May. They spent a few months discerning what that looked like and how to remove that welcome statement. That welcome statement will continue to be kind of our guiding statement that's on our bulletins and how we welcome new people to our church, that all are welcome to be here. And so the church board and the deacons, after this discernment that the deacons had for a few months, we decided, okay, it is time to remove that unintended welcome statement from the bylaws in the Constitution and to revert back to what that original pre-January 2024 membership guidelines were. Now, the deacons did take that opportunity to kind of update and modernize the language a little bit of what that looks like. So the current welcome statement will continue to be in our publications, but it is not the intent for the Inclusive Task Group to have that in our Constitution. Okay. So, just so that we're all kind of on the same page, I've got a bunch of information here. This is what our pre-January 28, 2024 membership guidelines, looked like. You can see that second paragraph is very similar to a welcome statement, and that's where some of the confusion happened during that vote in January, is we had used that same statement as our welcome statement, even though it was part of, this is who we're welcoming to be a part of a membership here. So it's slightly different. And please, if you have questions, comments, concerns, raise your hand. So what was in the past to what we currently have, you can see right there too, what the wording change was. And I can share this with folks if you ever want to dive deep into it. That is more than easy to be able to do. Okay? And so this is the original pre-2024, pre-January 2024 statement with the edits of what the deacons are proposing and the board has approved. You can see up here. So you can see that we are editing some of the things, like I said, mostly to modernize the language, but then we are removing the welcome statement that was approved in 2020 or in the January 2024 congregational meeting, putting the old statement that talked about welcoming, not a welcome statement, but talked about welcoming, back in, but again, updating language to what that actually meant. Okay? And that's what the vote will be about today. One, to kind of clean up some of the policy procedure stuff that we had made some mistakes on, and two, gave the deacons an opportunity to update and discern what does membership, what do membership folks need to do to be a member here at Bethel College Mennonite Church. Questions, comments, concerns. That's kind of how we got to where we are today. It's confusing to me, so if it's confusing to you, that's okay. And if I can clarify or even have deacons help clarify at times, or have inclusive task group clarify, I'm sure that there are members here that would be happy to at least briefly speak about kind of how we got to where we are today. I was a 5th grade teacher for a while. Silence means we're good to go. So here's what we're actually voting on today, is to update, based on those edits that you saw on the previous slide, to this statement right here. I'll read it aloud. Those of you that are watching online, you can vote approve or disapprove to the phone number that you see there, 316-308-5501. So Article 5, membership here at Bethel College Mennonite Church. Membership in the Bethel College Mennonite Church is open to all who affirm their faith in God, who seek to center their lives in the life and teachings of Jesus Christ, who are open to the presence and guidance of the Holy Spirit, and who have received baptism as a symbol of their commitment and covenant. Bethel College Mennonite Church welcomes into fellowship and membership all persons who commit to Jesus Christ without regard to their race, ethnic background, gender identity, sexual orientation, ability, economic status, marital state, age, or other factors which can lead to discrimination and marginalization. Members offer themselves to support Mennonite principles and to share in the life and work of this congregation. Okay, so Ada, did we already pass out stuff? Awesome. She was quick. I didn't even see it happen. So you have pieces of paper to be able to make a vote. You will either write yes or no if this is something that you approve of or not Again, mostly the same as what we had pre-January 2024. Little modernization of language. Go ahead and write down what your vote is. And Ada, do you want me to have them pass it to the center? Please pass to the center when you have made your choice. And we will count those votes, and I will count those online votes as we go. Yes, Ada? Please do not fold them, just kind of turn them over. You're on the trust system here too, so don't look at your partner's answer. And our board members and helpers will be going down the middle to collect those. Thank you. Thank you to the work of the deacons and the inclusive task group to do this work, this discernment. We will provide the results of the vote in an email probably later this or early this upcoming week. Allow some time to continue to collect those votes. We will tally those. Pastors, if you can make your way towards the front. We'll give some updates on how the pastors and the moderators have been discerning different roles that we have. We'll start with the pastors, and then I'll talk about what the moderators are going through a similar discernment.
So in my first weeks here, we pastors have had a lot of prayer together and conversation, and we went on a retreat for a day just a couple weeks ago. And we have a plan of which of us is primarily focusing on some different areas in the congregation, with the understanding that our capacities will shift from time to time, and the needs of the congregation shift. So we're holding it loosely, but it's helpful moving forward to have some sense of who's doing what in general. So in terms of pastoral care, we kind of have some general categories and then some specific pieces. So we'll each share what we're doing. From my part, in terms of pastoral visitation, that is not my primary responsibility. I am around and available as needed, and will primarily take my direction from Elizabeth in terms of when I might be needed on that. But obviously am available to visit and talk with people in the congregation. Worship planning and preaching, Nathan and I primarily are sharing that, and I will be preaching 2 to 3 times a month and planning the worship, sort of facilitating, coordinating worship on those days that I'm preaching, and sometimes with guest preachers like Sarah Augustine. I'm so excited for Sarah to be here next week. Commissions and committees, I will be the primary pastor working with faith formation, with the church board and the finance committee. I won that fight of who gets to go to all the finance meetings. Staff Congregation Relations Committee, the Worship Commission, the Bethel College Relations Committee, and the Abuse Prevention and Response Committee. Nathan and I will both work with them, but I will be the primary point person for the ongoing work of keeping the policy updated and making sure that we are doing the things we say we will do to keep our kids and youth safe in the congregation.
And I will be the primary contact for visitation, with support as needed from Nathan and from Joanna if as needed. And I will also be the liaison for the Deacon Commission.
All right. Yeah, I will help out with visitation, particularly more towards the end of life, and funerals and memorial services and that kind of thing. I'll continue to do that. The primary pastoral staff for Hospitality Commission and also Witness Commission. And let's see, what else? Preaching about once or twice a month, and then, worship coordinating and that kind of thing with that. My hope is, and this has always been my hope, that I would be half-time at church here. I've been three-quarter time for a while, and so the plan is that I'll go back to half-time starting in 2025. So that's mainly what I do.
And Joanna and pastoral staff, will you be sending out kind of a written communication that summarizes the discernment that you've gone through? They have a chart. Believe it or not, they've got a chart. Thank you very much. I know that they've been working hard together as a team and with a kind of a coach to help them along in this discernment process. It's been fun to see what those conversations from a moderator standpoint, how those conversations have evolved, and to see kind of where each one of them ends up. And again, this is loose because the needs of the congregation, as our metaphor said earlier, we are a river that is constantly changing. So the needs of the congregation and of our pastoral staff may change as well. The moderators, Bill, our moderator-elect, myself, and Ada, we are going through the same discernment process. We no longer have a representative board that has representatives from different committees and commissions to be able to say, hey, this is the work that is going on in these areas, and bring that to the board. And so Ada, Bill, and I are going to kind of split different committees and commissions up similarly to how the pastors did, so that we can be those direct contacts and say, this is how we're going to support you as moderators and a leadership team here at the church. And there may be times where we ask those committees to do certain work. Now, as a part of the process between the church board and our pastors, there was communication a few weeks ago that we are delaying our leadership retreat to be able to, one, adjust to kind of what these new roles look like for our pastors and our moderators. But also we want to make sure, kind of with the new direction of the way that our church is moving, having the commissions and committees do a lot of the work of the church, instead of the pastors kind of being assigned from commissions and committees to do the work of the church. And so we want to make sure that we set up a leadership retreat so that our chairs of our commissions and committees are adequately equipped to be able to work with our pastors and our staff here at the church to continue doing the work of the church, and to do so within the capacity that they have in those committees and commissions. That's something that we saw from the Credence report from a few years ago, is that we were burning some pastors out with additional workloads that came from committee work that probably should stay within the committee. Questions, comments, concerns on those different reports there? Okay. Dwight. Where's Dwight? There's Dwight. Okay, so now we've got an update from the Solar Committee, and this was pretty interesting to take a look at when I was able to see the information before everyone else. So Dwight, you just tell me when to click a slide and you can take over.
So I have a really bad history in holding this microphone at the place close to my mouth, allowing you to hear me. So please raise your hand if you're not hearing. Maybe just a few comments to recall kind of where we've been over the past year. I think it was just about a year ago when the Solar Subcommittee of the Creation Care sent a proposal to the board to move forward with a acquisition of a solar system based here in the church and with the panels on our roof. And we had a number of informational meetings, which some of you will undoubtedly recall, that we did a lot of hand-wringing about where the money was going to come from and what all this would mean for Bethel College Mennonite Church. And it all happened so fast that, it was faster than I think any of us on the committee dreamed it could happen. We were fortunate to have had early contacts with King Solar, and once we decided that that was the direction we were going to go, they were really remarkable in giving us an early detailed estimate, and then actually sticking by us even when we were uncertain about whether we were going to go forward or when we were going to go forward. And so estimates that they gave us must be a year ago by now. They basically honored those, and we were talking to them about when this would all come about, and gee, I mean, it came about exactly when they said even a year ago that it might occur. So it's really kind of remarkable the speed with which all of this came to be. So you may be aware that toward the end of June, the panels actually, the installation was finished and the panels actually came into use. And you can see on that first slide how much difference it made. You can see that the amount of energy that we are having to pay for now is like something like 5% or less of what we paid for a year ago. At least that was the case in the first 2 months. So we have to be clear too that we're still in the process of figuring out exactly how this is going to work out, because it's going to be different at different times of the year. What we have experience with so far is the months of July and August, and that's basically what you're seeing displayed there. So that's the good part. I mean, we're generating a lot of energy, and I mean, as Margaret Taves has said, that's the most important part. Presumably, that's fossil fuel that is not being consumed and generating greenhouse gases. But there are other parts that are not as good. I have to give credit here to other members of the committee, especially Margaret Taves and Hugo Boschman and Lorna. Lorna Harder, we've met a number of times. And I also want to mention that in terms of understanding what is going on with the billing and the complicated interactions with the utility company, Jim Mueller of Facilities has been hugely helpful, at least to me. And we haven't met with him formally in the committee, but he has really helped us understand what are the implications of the way things go with Evergy. Maybe we could go to the next slide. One back. Yeah. So the one that you were looked at a moment ago was a graph that Margaret created, showing us the amount of energy that we were paying Evergy for in this year versus a year ago in these 2 months. But here's what we're paying. Here are the dollars that we're actually paying compared to last year. And yeah, it's dramatically down, but it's not down nearly as much as we might have hoped. So we're maybe paying for 5 to 10% of the amount of energy that we paid for a year ago, but the way we're paying is different, and we don't make the rules, they make the rules somehow, or at least, they get them approved by the Kansas Corporation Commission, And anyway, this is what we wind up paying. So instead of a bill a year ago, July of 1286, it's 441, and in August 1317 versus 463. So yeah, it's a big decrease. It's lots of money that we don't have to pay for electrical energy now that we did before, but it's not what we had hoped, of course. And maybe we could go to the next slide. So this is actually just a screenshot or a couple of screenshots from the displays that are available at the Evergy site. So you can see at the top that kilowatt hours in May and June were way higher than they were in July and August. That's the energy that we're actually paying Evergy for. On the bottom, you see how much we're paying, and the other aspect of it that is illustrated there. Let's see the orange part of the bars in May and June, and we're looking at the lower graph now. The orange part is the amount that we paid for, based on the number of kilowatt hours used, and the green part has to do with the various fees and surcharges. In July and August, you can see that the basis of our billing is radically different. So you can see that most of the bar is blue, and that blue is what is referred to as demand charges, which have been, the whole method of billing has shifted to be actually based primarily on demand charges. And you can see, in June it was roughly 3/4. In July it was roughly 3/4. In August, apparently even more than that of our whole bill. So what is a demand charge? We are being charged literally for the highest usage during a 15-minute period of the month. So like 3/4 or more of our bill is based entirely on what we used in that highest 15-minute period, okay? Which turns out to be at about 9 o'clock on a Sunday morning, right? The whole idea of demand charges, of course, is that the utility has to meet the demands of its customers, right? And so if everybody is using a lot of energy at the same time, obviously, that strains the grid and all of that. But that strain is not being experienced by Evergy at 9 o'clock on a Sunday morning. It's being experienced, and they're very explicit about it. At their website, it's being experienced at from 4 to 8 in the evening during a weekday. And they don't even talk about weekends at all, let alone 9 o'clock on Sunday. So anyway, that's the challenge that we're facing. There may be some things that, and you might just flip it to the last one. Here in words that written mostly by Margaret, we have kind of a summary of what we experienced in particular in July. So July 14 turned out to be the crucial day of the month, or 14 from 9 to 9:15, the crucial 15 minutes of the month, right? And that determined 3/4 of our bill. So we're billed at the rate of $9.52 per kilowatt hour for that period. Otherwise, we're billed at something like 7 cents a kilowatt hour. So I don't know if that all sounds fair to you. We don't kind of think it's very fair. In particular, we're being charged a commercial rate, okay? Which, I guess that's okay, but seems like maybe they could do something else for nonprofits. And then, I think the whole idea of demand charges in this instance is really not, it functions, it appears as an excuse to get more money out of us. One shouldn't attribute too many motives but you know, it doesn't seem especially fair. And so we have two possible strategies in working at that. We might be able to diminish that usage by the way we start our air conditioning units. You know, not maybe starting them all at the same time or something like that, although we, you know, I mean, it'll require some experimentation to even be able to figure out what to do. We can actually get data from Evergy. We can get detailed data. We get how much we use for every 15-minute period for the whole month. And we can get similar data from King Solar that has that same level of detail. So we know exactly what we're being charged for, and you know, when that energy is being generated and utilized. So, but there's some work between here and there to figure out what that's all about. We're thinking that it might be nice to have a Bethel student to help us with this. So that's one idea that we're working on. The other one is, I don't know, some of you are aware perhaps of an organization based in Hutchinson called the Climate and Energy Project. And they've done some helpful things in working on behalf of customers, residential customers, right? And so we're hoping that maybe they would pay some attention to this issue. You know, it's being experienced not only by us, but also by, for example, First Mennonite Church and by Heston Mennonite Church. So, you know, maybe we can make common cause with those folks and try to put some pressure on the Kansas Corporation Commission to act on our behalf. I don't know. We're hoping maybe a student might get involved in that as well. So anyway, that's more than enough, I guess.
Thank you very much, Dwight. And from the work of the Solar Committee, and for those of you that have put things together, I think if you want more information, please contact either Dwight or Margaret. They may even be able to share those links so that you can track our solar usage as well. So yeah, that's great news for us to see that our energy usage is down tremendously. And we'll continue to work as a board to support the solar group in whatever ways that we can to make sure that we're paying a fair rate. This is not a final tally for the vote we just took. I have some text messages that I will add on here too, but 103 yes and 2 no. So those numbers will change in very slightly, but it looks like our membership guideline has passed. And as the solar group was helping us save some money, some significant money, the board and the finance committee have been working closely together over the last month and are going to continue to do so that we're both on the same page of where we are budget-wise. I think that's one of the concerns coming up from the congregation. And so as we met a few weeks ago, these were some charts that we had from our August financial report from Mike. And these were the two that we wanted to share and comment a little bit on, and then answer a few questions. We don't have a ton of details at this point on some things. So as you can tell by our, on the left chart over here, income, expense, and budget, you can see that it is normal year to date to be where we are. Kind of have our income less than our expense. Now, this year, 2024, that gap is a little bit wider than it was last year between the blue and the red, but kind of in line of where we were 2022. The one that probably most of our finance committee members and our board members commented on was the graph on the right. That graph shows where we are, income less expense by month and year. So 2024 is the dark, thick black line, and it shows that we are at a point that we haven't really seen since about that 2022 chart. but we're about a month behind that. A month behind that. It's not bad or good or anything. It's just data for us to look at right now and to be able to use as we are developing what our 2025 budget is going to be. I know that the Finance Committee sent out and shared a wonderful bit of gratitude for those of us that have contributed to the donations to help the church continue doing what we do. And I think as we are discerning together from a board and from a finance committee, and then when we bring a final budget to the congregation in January, there's going to be some good questions to contemplate and to ask. And you can do that with us as board members and with the finance committee, throughout this entire process. And so I encourage you to make sure, if you have made some of those commitments, we used to call it the Pony Express, that's now the BCMC Express, keep up with those commitments if you can, and make sure that we continue being fiscally responsible as best we can, to continue doing the work of this church, because the work that we do is wonderful and it's great, but it does cost money to do that work. So we wanted to share these graphs with you. Questions, comments, concerns about kind of what that budget process looks like right now. Our treasurer, Mike, is not here today. He did share with us that he doesn't really have any major concerns of where we're at right now. But that's just kind of where we're at. Wanted to be open and honest and transparent with you all. You all must be pretty hungry. Okay, what's next for us? I think it's up to you where we need to go. We worked really hard together over the last 2 years to make sure that we were honest with each other when we went through the credence report. I think that told us a lot about who we are and where we want to be. And that takes work, And so I'm excited to see kind of where we go, being fully staffed in our ministry team. And when I say ministry team, that includes the work of George and the work of Jill and what they do, because that work is absolutely vital for our congregation. It is exciting to see youth participate, excitedly participate in our congregation. And as a father of 2 young boys here, I am so happy to see the support that you provide to our youth here in this church, and that means a lot, not only to them, but it means a lot to the parents and the family members as well. I'm excited to continue going forward. Our next 2 congregational meetings, those have been set. And so those dates have been put out in email. If you need that information again, just let me know and we can get those to you. And we as board members, we're here to support. So if you have ideas, comments, concerns about what we can do to make your experience better as a congregant, let us know and we can work together to make that happen. Thank you. And then what I'll do is I'll give a quick prayer and then send you downstairs to enjoy your hot dogs and hamburgers. Please pray with me. God, thank you for bringing us together today to honor you in the work that we do, to enjoy worship together, and to enjoy fellowship together. Thank you to the youth who provided the energy and the effort to provide our meal today. And please bless that meal and the energy that will provide us to go out and do your work, and bless the hands that brought it to us. Amen. Thank you all.